Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, so during our last session, we covered MVC, right? What is MVC? Okay. And in
Sir,
MVC, yeah,
sir, I'm new to the batch. I joined today.
okay.
This only 2 demos were there online. That's it, right? This.
This started on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. 3 sessions should be there. And today is the 4th one. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched the demo, and it has all the layers, and you're talking about different frameworks, Spring Data GP.
Yeah, correct.
So there is one class in between. This one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, would you add me to WhatsApp group? I will make the payment today, and
Yeah, sure. Mm, This is, yeah, I hope this is the one, right? Um, yeah, join this group.
so,
Can you check what is the group name?
I'll try 1 second, sir.
Yeah.
New group. I'm trying to add. I cannot. Mm, 1 second, sir. Join chat. Sir, how to join with that link, sir? I'm not
When you
getting.
click on that, if you already open web WhatsApp, right, in your laptop
Yeah.
or in your phone, whenever you click, it will take you to the WhatsApp group directly.
It is telling me to download, even though I have it. Uh, 1 second. Sir, okay, sir. I'll figure it. We can
Yeah,
continue the class.
I'll add later. Clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So this is the roadmap, right? Coming to the discussions. We started with MVC and the involvement of all the frameworks. MVC, and they took our MVC based applications, what tech stack we have that we have discussed. And in Spring, Okay, technical stack in the sense, for view layer, we have thought about HTML and other frameworks we'll be using here, like Angular or React or any mobile UIs, right? We can have any kind of technology for presentation layer. And for controller part, we talk about servlets or frameworks like Struts, or we can use Spring MVC for this layer. And we know for DAO, we have so many to implement: Jdbc, ORM, and Spring-based Jdbc, Spring ORM. Just a minute. Yeah, we can have Spring ORM here, or Spring JDBC. And in Spring Boot, we have Spring Data JPA also. Okay, so we have discussed about MVC. And during this MVC application design, especially in string, we follow POSO model everywhere. We follow POSO model everywhere for MVC implementation. And using this POSO model, right, we will learn how to implement all the layers. We will see all the layers how we will implement, like from controller to model part. Okay. So here, as part of this, first we are going to learn containers. So how containers will handle all this POSO class and what are all the features that they have. As part of the features, the main important feature that we need to cover in depth is dependency injection. And this dependency injection went to the next level with auto wiring, automated dependency injection, like auto wiring. And once done with this auto wiring, we have stereotypes. Even containers will behave differently. I mean, without having these XML files, all that concepts are avoiding with the stereotypes. So that stereotypes we will be discussing. So by here you will get comfort knowledge on complete IOC module, core module, Spring core module, comfort you will get. Along with this, there are some miscellaneous topics like factories, design patterns, okay, that we can add. So by here you will get comfort, Spring core knowledge once we
సార్
get all through these topics. Yeah.
ఒకసారి లెఫ్ట్లో ఏంటి సార్ అది వ్యూ వ్యూ వర్క్ అర్థమైంది పోజో ఏంటి సార్ ఇది
Basically, we will follow POSO model to implement it instead of making classes as a complicated, API dependency classes. While using frameworks, right? In general, frameworks will ask us to implement their APIs, right? If you went through Struts framework or JSF, there we used to extend some action classes, action forms, or if you use servlets, they used to ask us to extend generic servlet or HTTP servlet. So the framework dependency they used to put. So instead of making our classes, direct dependency classes to the frameworks, we can implement them as a plain Java classes, okay, to make your application, maintainable, and for future also when you want to change framework itself, easily should able to adapt new framework. Okay, maintaining a plain, I mean, as a developer, you need to create a plain application. It should behave as it is, as per your expectations. So the remaining, the features and all, application framework should provide on the fly. Instead, you know, having a dependency logic directly, your framework need to provide all your required dependencies on the fly. It's okay. During writing, our MVC classes like controllers or services or DAO classes, we follow this model. Okay. So that's why we
So,
configure all these classes as a bean class in our XML file.
sir, we use annotations instead of
Hmm.
uh, so that using Pojo and annotations is called Pojo.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
still the annotation dependency we will be having.
okay.
Yeah. So a little bit dependency you will be having, but we will try to avoid as much as the dependencies.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to annotations, again, it became like somewhat a little tightly coupled, but still that is fine. That is manageable. Okay.
Very cool. Sir, last class చూస్తే ఐడియా వస్తుందా సార్? ఏమన్నా ఇది
Yeah, yeah. You can go through it last 3 sessions. Okay. So I'm just trying to give roadmap how I wanted to take this session. So until completion of, I mean, once after completion of Spring Core framework, then using the Spring Core framework, we can adopt or we can learn all other modules. So once done with core is having containers, right? So easily we can able to run other modules, containers, and we will be using concepts like dependency injection plus auto wiring and
Auto
stereotype
wiring is
concepts.
auto wiring is dependency injection, right? What's the difference between DI and auto wiring?
Yeah, DI means passing the data for your
Okay.
requirements. Auto wiring means doing it automatically.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the difference. Okay. So while using auto wiring, it will make sure that instead you doing it like somewhat robots will do, right? If you assign job, do this all the time. Pick that item there and drop it here. Like
Right.
car manufacturing, how it will happen, like robots will do the continuous same job
Right.
by
Right.
automating it. Same thing, dependency injection manually, we used to put m- many efforts to do this. So when we use these stereotypes and auto wiring concept, right? So your intervention is not much required for doing that task. So automatically container will do this for you. When you specify stereotypes with auto wiring, right? Everything it will do automatically. Whereas in generally, before going to auto wiring, we will see how containers
Yeah. Yeah.
will create objects when you specify being manually in XML file. And this DI also we used to do dependency injection. So
Right.
here we automate everything. That's how Spring Boot also working, right? In Spring Boot also, it used to do lot of new concepts they added apart from this
Yes.
auto wiring stereotypes. So that's why you will be seeing there no much code. But
Very
if you
simple code.
imagine, yeah, yeah, simple code, simplified, right? Everything simplified. But if you see the old applications which we used to configure everything in XML file, right? You can imagine how much um, they simplified the framework. Yeah. So this we will learn as part of IOC. So we'll be getting comfort to learn the next modules like JDBC. On top of it, we can have Spring JDBC and one more layer on top of it, ORM. or Spring Data JPA. And to handle transactions and all, we will use Spring Transaction module. And to add services, we can use AOP, aspect-oriented programming. On top of it, you can have MVC and security. Spring MVC security to handle.
Hello. Sir, what is that stack? Mm, Not audible, sir. Voice.
Can someone message him on the chat? He's muted maybe. Yeah.
I cannot hear. Can anyone hear?
Yeah. No, we can't hear them.
Hello, am I audible?
Now you are audible.
Yeah, no, sir. Yeah.
Now we can.
Hello? Am I
Yes, sir.
audible now?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
sir.
are. You
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
You are.
Okay, great. Yeah. So let's start with containers. Okay, first we will learn about containers, because to run any application, in last session also we discussed it, right? So while we were using servlets or Struts framework, we used to convert our application end of the day as a WAR file, web archive file, and we used to run that application on Tomcat.
Sir, Spring MVC kuda war file aga, sir.
Yeah. We'll jump into there. So we used to run it into Tomcat. Yes, of course. Spring MVC also. While using Spring MVC framework also, we used to convert it as a var, and we used to deploy it on Tomcat. Okay, so the Tomcat is a container, okay, specially designed to handle servlets. Okay, so if it is handling servlets, why I need to deploy MVC and struts also? Because MVC or struts, again, internally using servlet concepts only. Internally in this framework, they are using servlets only to receive. Basically, servlet parties, it can able to handle the request and response which is coming from the presentation layer. Okay, so if it is a Jdbc related class or ORM classes, they can't handle that job. So web UI request, if something they send from the browser, right, who can able to read that data means servlets only. In Java, no other option. Okay, so here if you have UI, like if you are sending from IE Internet Explorer, okay, something you are filling data here, and when you submit it, back inside, the only component who can read your data is Kali servlet. Nothing apart from it. So the servlets can run on only Tomcat or any servlet container. Okay, there are many servlet containers. Okay, so the most using is Tomcat. So this Tomcat, it used to, you know, send this HTTP data to your servlets. Then servlets used to read that data, and there we used to process it while we were writing servlet classes directly. Nowadays, frameworks did what? They created one more wrapper layer on top of servlets and created frameworks to simplify our job. So on top of the servlets only, the Spring MVC and Struts kind of frameworks has designed. So though you are using Spring MVC, internally it will use servlets only, whether it is a Struts framework or Spring framework. Spring MVC, not all other modules. They designed on top of servlet classes only. So if there is a servlet class in your framework, then where you can able to run your application on Tomcat only. Okay. So, but how this, they changed this dependency of containers here is only MVC. For only MVC classes, you need Tomcat. For other classes, right? Like for business classes and DO classes, earlier we used to use EJBs. While using EJBs for other implementation, apart from Tomcat, EJB container also required. So Spring avoided that. So the remaining classes can be a plain classes. And if you need all such features which EJB providing, you can still implement them and you can run them on Tomcat container. IOC container. Okay. So here this container job is, it used to, create servlet objects and it used to manage servlet life cycles. When you are doing the same thing in Spring Boot, we can convert the Spring Boot also finally as a var or jar. So comfortably you can convert into simple Java archive file and you can run this directly on JRE. Just you need JRE, that's it. How it will run JRE? Can it able to manage Spring Boot? Inside Spring Boot also, if I make any web application, means directly JRE can't do that, but Spring Boot framework itself came up with along with embedded web containers. Okay, there are multiple flavors. Okay, the default is Tomcat. While you are using Spring Boot inbuilt, it given embedded Tomcat software. So directly you can run Spring Boot. Spring Boot will start Tomcat and Tomcat will handle again everything for you. Okay, they designed it in a different way. We will discuss that architecture later. But here, what is this containers job means? The containers will create objects for your classes and they will manage life cycles for your classes. So the Tomcat container or WebLogic or JBoss, any containers which you choose for your application, they can manage servlets, objects creation and servlet lifecycle management.
Sir, they can run both var and jar, right? Containers.
Here in Spring Boot or
Tomcat, Tomcat can run both var file and jar file. Right?
no, I think jar only, var only, sorry. Only
Okay.
web archive files it can able to read and extract.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between a war file and jar file?
Var is a web archive file, like we need to follow web application architecture there. Do you know servlets?
Not much.
Okay.
No, sir.
So generally in servlets, we will create, the folder structure is like this, right? We will be having one source folder. There we used to put our code, all the classes. And we used to have one webinf. Under webinf folder, we used to put one web.xml file, right?
Okay.
And we used to manage libs also, libraries inside it, inside webinf. All the libraries we used to put here. There is some, folder structure that you must follow.
Okay.
And there is one webinf or web what is that? Web.
So only structure perspective, it is a difference. Is it so?
Yeah. So we need to follow this folder structure only. I
Okay.
mean, views we used to manage here, all the views on web
Okay.
content actually.
Okay.
Then,
And by default, Spring is provide such kind of a structure in terms of jar.
no, let me complete it. So
Okay.
here, when without following this folder structure, if you implement servlet applications, Tomcat, it cannot recognize. Always what it will do when you deploy a var file, let's say if this complete code there in your var file, you build an application, okay, something student management system dot var. As soon as you deploy it into Tomcat, right?
Mhm.
So I put this complete package in a Tomcat. That too in Tomcat, we will be deploying into one folder like web apps somewhere, right? In web apps folder, you need to put. Then when you start Tomcat directly, it will go to web apps folder. Inside web apps folder, it will read all your var files and it will extract them first. Var jar, zip files, how we extract, right? Similarly, your Tomcat will extract this. Once it extracts, it will expect one webinf folder. Inside webinf folder, it will expect one web.xml file. It will go directly into web.xml file and it will read all your configurations from here. So in this configuration, it will expect what? Either servlets or filters or listeners or JSP configuration it will expect here. Which means you need to configure your servlets here. You need to configure your servlets here. So Tomcat will recognize them as soon as you configure here and deploy it, right? It will go and read them. It will read directly your web.xml file. From this web.xml file, it will identify all the servlets which you implemented as part of your source classes folder. So from your classes folder, it will read all the code and it will create objects for your servlets. Then your application will go into live. Okay. And all the expected libraries you need to put here. All your views you need to add here.
Yeah.
Okay. This
Okay.
folder structure you need to follow. But while using Spring Boot, such dependency we don't have. We can put source code in SRC and they even like web content views folder also we can create. We can put it there. But still we need to follow one folder structure there. And we are not going to give any web.xml file or we are not going to provide such structure to Spring Boot application. Spring Boot internally is having Tomcat and in Spring Boot internally they implemented servlet classes also. That servlet classes objects automatically Tomcat will create. I mean, which means dispatcher servlet. It is already implemented as part of jar files. The similar architecture they implemented, web.xml file, everything already given as part of framework. So you are not going to focusing on this. We just focus on controller part and model part. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Naveen.
So when you deploy it as a jar file, it will extract again your Spring Boot code as part of Spring Boot. It is having Spring Boot web, right? The jar, it is having Tomcat. So Tomcat will be started automatically when you start Spring Boot. Tomcat will execute internally the framework servlet, dispatcher servlet, and it will handle everything for you.
సార్ టామ్ క్యాట్కి ఒరాకిల్ వెబ్ లాజిక్ సర్వర్కి ఏదో డిఫరెన్స్ ఉంటుంది కదా సార్?
So basically, there are two types of containers that we started using. The one is a servlet container, and another one is EJB container. Earlier, all the distributed applications used to build on EJBs. Okay. So if it is a servlet container, it can handle only servlets. Tomcat is only having servlet container. Okay. So WebLogic is having both servlet container and EJB container. WebLogic, WebSpare, JBoss, they have EJB container also. They can run both the servlets and EJBs. So where we used to use EJBs means in our MVC application before Spring, right? While people using servlets or Struts framework, this model part, business classes and DO classes used to implement them in servlets for controller, and here they used to use EJB session beans for business layer, and for DAO layer for doing CRUD operations, EJB entity beans. Okay. For controller servlets, this combination mostly people used to use for service and for DAO. This is the combination they used to use. While using this combination for MVC applications, who can able to run all these classes? Simply we can't run it on JRE. We need special containers for them. To run servlets, we need servlet container. To run EJBs, EJBs container. When your application is combination of all this, servlets and EJBs, we used to make it as a enterprise archive file, EAR, and that EAR we used to deploy it into WebLogic. So when you deploy EAR into WebLogic, from EAR it will read servlets and deploy it into servlet container. Servlets will handle on
Sir,
servlet container.
EJBs will have jars, right, sir?
Yes.
So
The
var
combination,
plus
yeah. Var plus jar, we'll make it as a EAR. So that EAR contains the servlets itself, var file. For servlet views are var and EJBs are jar, and this combination, right? These both will be merged into EAR file, enterprise archive file. During EJB, extractor or EJB tool, right? We used to convert it as a EAR file and we used to deploy it. So from this EAR, var file will deploy it into servlet container. WebLogic used to have servlet container and EJB container. Servlet container and EJB container. So this is how WebLogic used to handle both the servlets and EJB based application. Okay. And when you design your application with this architecture, as a developer, technically lot of skills we should have and a lot of time it used to take. Okay, and that is not so easy to implement application. So slowly evolution started for EJBs as an alternative. Gavin King, again, is a part of EJB team only. He made this EJB entity beans framework simple and he created Hibernate. So there he thought of why I should, always depend on a EJB container to run EJBs. So he introduced Hibernate and he avoided complete EJB container dependency for entity beans. So when you go with Hibernate, Hibernate came with self-container. Where you can able to run Hibernate means self-container. It is having its own self-container. It is
so
having its own
Hibernate
self.
కూడా బేనేనా సార్?
Mostly, yes.
Sorry, bean Java EJB ఏనా సార్?
No. It's an alternative for EJB entity bean. Hibernate is. Do you know Hibernate? Anyone Hibernate or JPA? ORM framework.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? In ORM, we have all these mappings, CRUD operations by directly when
Sir,
we give entity.
advanced Java topics
Will be
lectures,
covered.
sir.
Yes, Hibernate also will be covering during our
Servlets.
weekend sessions.
Servlets కూడా చెప్తారు, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Servlets and Hibernate I am covering during our weekend sessions. Okay. I'll plan 2 weekends. Okay. 1 weekend for Servlet, one weekend for Hibernate, and for tools also I'll be covering 1 more weekend. Mostly free workshops. Okay. Everyone will join. Basically, Hibernate is also, it's an easy framework to make CRUD operations. Again, before going to Hibernate, you need to have a little bit Jdbc knowledge. Then how evaluation, became from normal Jdbc to ORM, you can understand. So when you use Hibernate, it is having self-container. You need not to deploy this EJB class into any special EJB container. Why he thought of doing it means, while using EJBs, you have to do a lot of, investment on servers. Your code, to develop your code, you hired a skilled person and he developed it. So once development is done, again, for deploying and maintenance, you need to buy the servers. Application servers are costly. You need to, get the license, you need to deploy, then only they will support. But if still your business is very small scale, you can't afford it. So that's where he thought of avoiding that dependency of server for EJB entity beans and brought Hibernate. Again, Hibernate is a powerful ORM tool. So it came up with self-containers. Self-container means framework itself is having a container as part of open source jar files they given, right? As part of their jar itself, it is having self-container. And what EJB session beans specially doing here? For EJB session, EJB session beans can handle a distributed logic. Stubs or skeletons we can generate for EJB session beans. So one code, let's say my application is having 5 modules. To run that 5 modules, one single server is not sufficient. Let's say if it is banking application, customer, application, admin application, and other users also used to be there. All their applications, if they run on single machine, it may not handle. So if they want to distribute that logic into multiple machines, okay, using EJB session means we can do that flow cutting, right? From one machine to another machine. We can keep one logic in our machine and another logic in different machine. So from here to there, if you want to make a call like remote network call, right? In EJBs, we used to do that using the stub skeleton models. So like it used to send request to another server, and from there it used to get response, and it used to utilize it. Nowadays we are nobody using it. If you want such, we are using web services, using HTTP protocol, simple REST APIs we are using to do that request response exchange. So what else apart from that distributed, computing? What else EJB session beans are capable means? It can handle transactions. Okay, global transactions we can able to handle here. Now to handle the transactions, Spring also capable. Spring transactions we can use whatever it was doing, Spring also can do. So slowly once Spring came into the market, EJB session beans also avoided. So no EJB session beans and no EJB entity beans using. As an alternative for session beans distributed computing and transactions management, people started using Spring transactions. And if you want to make, calls to another services, people started using REST SOAP or RPC type. So if all these options we have, they are coming with self containers, why I should use EJB containers then? While I am using EJB, Spring transactions, or by using Spring, the more interesting concepts they given like AOP. If in case if you want to add some logic throughout your application without interrupting them, using AOP you can do. On the fly logics you can apply. A lot of modules if you want to handle mail, or if you want connection pools. In Spring API itself, they've given all that connection pool classes. Earlier, we used to depend on containers for data source and all. Now they made everything as a simple jar file and given to us. You need not to bother about them, by downloading server and configuring everything. That much, configurations or server dependencies. We don't have everything given, like Spring REST also we have as part of Spring Boot, or by using your WebJar file REST controllers we can create, and we can handle SOAP also. So if I have all these for distributed computing, why then I should depend on EJB session means nothing required. So while using Spring also having self-container. Spring also having self-container. Imagine how they started, um, it removed the dependencies of the servers. EJB container dependency they removed. So whatever EJBs are handling, you can able to handle in Spring also. And as a developer, you need not to have that much skills like EJB developer. I mean, it is easy to learn as a learning curve, or doing implementation also very, very easy in Spring. If you compare with EJBs, if they are, taking 100 days for the development, maybe here that you can reduce up to 10 days or 5 days. That much easy framework Spring is. So development efforts are reduced, server dependencies also reduced. So that's why the people started using them. Okay. And for servlets, there is no alternative yet they identified, because servlets are working very fine, and servlets we can run on simple Tomcat container. Anyway, that is free, open source. Apache given as an open source, so nobody is having problem. So you can use servlets. Still here, implementing code directly in servlets, may not speed up your development time. So on top of servlets, again, many frameworks came, and as we are discussing here, Spring, right? Spring framework also designed on top of servlets only. Spring MVC and Spring Security. Internally, they use servlets and filters concepts only. Servlet filters concepts only, but they designed on top of it. Again, this complete classes also run on self-container only. It never, run on your Tomcat container.
సార్ సెల్ఫ్ కంటైనర్ అంటే కొంచెం ఏమన్నా ప్రాక్టికల్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇస్తారా సార్?
Means itself, along with the framework, I introduced a framework. EJB is a framework I introduced, but to run this EJB framework, EJB is not capable. I designed a framework, but to run my framework, I need again a special container, special server. Servlets designed, can you run that servlets directly using Java command, Java space your servlet class, like your main method class? We can't, right? Getting?
సో ఓకే ఇవన్నీ జార్స్. సో ఆర్ దే ఆల్ జార్స్ సార్?
Or in a simple words, let's say, yeah.
సెల్ఫ్ కంటైనర్.
Yes, as part of your library itself, they given this classes also. Self-container is again class. As a simple Java class they given as part of a Spring MVC jar file. Your IOC jar file, right, is having this container. Spring core jar file and Spring context jar file are having the self-containers. They are simple Java classes. Okay, let me name them. Okay, so that no confusion. So here, what is that self-container name in Spring means? Bean factory is one flavor. Application context, they are simple Java classes, and web application context. These three are the classes that they given as part of your API itself. When you download Spring jar files and add, along with these jar files, you will get these containers. How to start them is just start them by using new keyword. You know how to create object. Using new keyword, whenever you create object for your classes, container classes, it will start them. New web application context, if you create inside your main method, what it will do, once this line reaches execution, and this line executed means you are starting container. What this container will do, immediately it will pick up all your MVC classes and it will manage them. That is what we are going to learn. Okay.
So it's also an object that container.
Yes, everything, even servlet is a object. Finally, who's going to create servlet object? Tomcat. You are not creating. Nowhere we create servlet object directly, or nowhere we create Jdbc objects directly. We ask containers to create objects for them.
Oh,
Similarly,
okay.
when you implement your classes using Spring or Hibernate, we never create objects to that classes. Containers will create. Even in Hibernate also, if you see, if you remember, there is a class, right? Configuration class. Class name itself, configuration. This configuration class itself is a container for you. Class name itself, configuration. This configuration class will run all your database code. Configuration class. So finally, when you implement your application with Spring and ORM combination, right? You doesn't require any special server here. Getting? And your
Naveen,
application is
normally,
having, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So in servlets, so
Hmm.
normally we have prepared the servlets and we deployed either any of the servers like Tomcat, Logic,
Hmm.
or Sphere,
Hmm.
and then we form the URL and then we call
Hmm.
it from front end, either IE or Chrome.
Correct.
So in Spring, how we have simplify this? So
Forming
anyway, we are
URL, that anyway, that is a configuration. You build your home and it is you build your home somewhere, right? And putting a road is your job. Okay.
mm,
So you build your application either in servlets or Spring MVC or in Spring Boot, right? It's your job to provide, a domain URL and integrate it. Anyway, we can have front end and back end code because they run on internally Tomcat only. So Tomcat will provide you web access. Again, if you design this in Spring also, Spring internally will use servlet.
so actually where we have to deploy this after forming the
Hmm.
all my bean classes, everything. So
Hmm.
normally in servlet we get deployed from the WebLogic console or WebSphere console, then we
Yeah,
can run it.
correct.
So
So in a simple words, when you implement your application using Spring MVC based, okay, old approach.
mm,
Okay, if it is Spring MVC based old approach, MVC means MVC for front end to back end access. The remaining modules also you can use. Like along with MVC, you definitely need to use your core module, and you need, if you want to use AOP, you can use JDBC, you can use, or ORM or Spring Data JPA, you can use, right? Any modules you can use along with MVC. So once you implement them, you need to deploy again this into Tomcat. When you convert it as a WAR file, of course, you need to deploy it into Tomcat. Why? Because I haven't used any servlet, still why I should deploy it into Tomcat means your Spring MVC module is there, right? This MVC module will work by using dispatcher servlet. Your MVC is having one servlet internally. Okay, so to handle only the single servlet, you need Tomcat. And can we avoid this single servlet means? No, this is the heart for the entire Spring application. Who used to access front-end request is this dispatcher servlet only. To run only this dispatcher servlet, we will use Tomcat, which means when you implement your application using, let me draw this architecture. You might feel heavy, but it's okay. And we are going to discuss in depth later. just to make you conclude. Okay, so basically to receive the view request, right, from front end, obviously we need one servlet at the back end. There is no alternative, as I said, right? One servlet is required. So that servlet designed as part of Spring MVC module, dispatcher servlet. Okay, you implement Spring Boot based REST controller or controller. Okay, using @ controller, you implemented your all controllers, or using @ REST controller, you implemented all your controller. Internally, it will use dispatcher servlet only. All views request first, it will come to one single class called dispatcher servlet. All your views request will come here. Once it get request here, this dispatcher servlet will distribute your request. Let's say if you have 100 forms here, for each form you may have one controller here, or one controller for all the forms. It's up to you. Okay, let's say I have registration page, you may have registration controller. If you have login page, login controller. Like that you can have here. So all that controllers we implement using @ controller or REST controller. Consider controller you have. Okay, leave it. So you have 3 controllers. So these are your POSO classes. From here, your POSO journey will start. These all are your Spring classes. So to run only this dispatcher servlet, you need Tomcat container. From here, dispatcher servlet can able to distribute request to controllers. Whatever data you are sending with the HTTP protocol, right, via web, this data dispatcher servlet will read, and it can forward that data to you as a request object. It can send your request and response objects to your controller. From here, your controller will read data and it will send it to your model layer. Here you will be having all other Spring modules. By using all other Spring modules, you can have business layer or your service and DO layer. Finally, who will run all these classes and who will run dispatcher servlet? To run this dispatcher servlet only, we will use Tomcat. Only one single class will be running in Tomcat. All the remaining classes will be running on your IOC container. Spring IOC container is responsible to run all these classes. Your controller classes, service classes, or DO classes. All this will run on IOC container only. So we should learn how to write all these classes from controller to service to DO, and how to use this container. We should learn. And when you implement your application with all this combination, right, front end and back end combination, of course, finally you need to deploy it into Tomcat only. But Tomcat is responsible to run only one class, is dispatcher servlet, for only this class. Okay. And in Spring Boot, earlier we used to implement application in Spring and we used to download Tomcat and there we used to run it. Now Spring Boot, what they did, they added this Tomcat code as an embedded code into your Spring Boot itself. So you never see Tomcat software separately in Spring Boot. Along with your libraries itself, Tomcat also came. When you run your application as a simple jar file, internally it will used to start Tomcat, and in that Tomcat it used to run servlets, and all the remaining classes again it used to run on IOC. Everything they automated it. Just only our primary focus is we need to write this controller, service, and DO. Just we need to focus on these layers. That you need to implement as a plain Java classes. You need not to extend APIs and all their dependency methods, mandatory methods you need to implement, right, while you are trying to implement some interface, or while extending some abstract classes. They will force us to implement all their API methods. But here you don't have such struggles. You just focus on your business. For this controller, you need registration method only, write it. And in the service, you need only registration method, just write it. Here you need only one single save operation, just write it. That's it. You need not to worry about frameworks and their configurations. They simplified everything.
So means in a Spring, we need a main server. So in Spring Boot, it is not needed.
Not needed. I mean, especially we don't download. It came again as a embedded.
Yes.
Okay, if it is the same application, if you design in Spring MVC, you need Tomcat. If it is in plain Spring MVC, you need Tomcat. If you go with the Spring Boot, Tomcat also not required because Tomcat came along with Spring Boot. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we deviated a lot. Okay, we'll come into the track. Okay, so for Monday session, right, we'll start with these containers. This is the very important module. Okay, as per our roadmap. Once you understand containers, doing or designing controller, service, and DAO, it's nothing. You know, it's an easy job to you to how to write controller, service, and DAOs. Just we need to focus how these containers are behaving. Okay, how this auto wiring is working, how stereotypes work. If you understand that 3-4 concepts hardly, that is mostly sufficient to remember all these concepts. Okay. Yeah. So tomorrow, day after tomorrow, no sessions. I thought of taking one more session, but yeah, let's take break. From Monday we will be starting regular session. Okay, so just get confirmation and get the regular link.
Sir, no weekend workshop, sir.
This weekend we don't have. Prior I will inform. Okay, let's say upcoming weekend, if I plan for advanced Java, I'll announce it very ahead before. But now not required. Maybe after 2 weekends we will be starting. At least we need to complete our IOC module and Jdbc. These modules we should finish first before going to learn advanced Java classes and Hibernate classes. Okay, they are not required now.
Okay. Sir, yesterday's class is available, sir, online or?
It should available in YouTube. I don't know. Maybe you can check. Here demo videos link they given. Course content demo videos. You will be getting playlist. Yesterday no session actually. You will be having 3 sessions only.
Okay.
Okay. First session on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yesterday I was on leave.
And today class.
Today's session also will be coming here.
Sir, give this link, sir. Give this link.
And regular videos will be available in my portal. I'll be sharing it with you. Okay, on Monday session.
From
So
Monday, the
Yes,
regular
sir.
sessions will be started.
correct.
Okay. Do you need to have any basic knowledge of Spring MVC or something else?
Nothing. Just to come up with basic core Java knowledge. If you know what is object, what is variable, what is class, that is sufficient.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Could you please share the WhatsApp link? Yeah, I joined today. So
Please.
I
This is
followed
my
your
number.
demo videos.
This is my number. Just ping me in WhatsApp. I'll add you. Okay.
Yeah,
9182662482.
yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you can note. This is my number.
Yeah, I will ping, sir.
Okay. It is displaying here. Okay. 9182662482. You can ping me. I'll add. Okay, so for you, right, what I'm providing after the session means, all the session videos will be available to you, and one examples blog with the description like tutorials point, right? I'll be providing one blog also to you, and one guy, dedicated person will be available for support for doing practice and all, right? He will be helping you.
So he available at weekend also, or how it is?
Yeah, you can book his appointment. I used to ask him to do in his free time a lot of books preparation and videos content uploads. He used to take care of lot of things, right? You can ping him on his availability. He will help you. Even weekends also he will help. Okay.
Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
what's his contact information, sir?
I will share it Monday session. Okay. After Monday session, I'll share his number also. Or else I'll ask him to join the session. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Naveen.
Yeah. So that is the plan. I mean, the agenda is 100% you should learn before, leaving from these sessions, right? You need to
Yeah,
get everything hands on. Yeah.
Yesterday class I missed, sir. The one before this. Today is first time
Today,
attending your session. Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. From Monday will be, nothing started from the coding point of view. Just I'm trying to inject what is Spring, how it works. Okay. From Monday we'll be starting with actual core module. So we'll be seeing how the core containers will work and how to create beans, how to create XML file, what are the different types of scopes we have, then different types of dependency injections, auto wiring, stereotypes, factory patterns. Okay. Yeah, everything is step by step we will go. So it will be easy to remember you. Thank you guys.
Sir,
Okay.
one question, sir.
Yeah.
Who JVM creates containers, sir. This as a part of Spring Framework code.
Yeah, go anywhere. If you see Java class, either it's a container or a class or a framework class, who is responsible to manage objects means JVM only. Okay.
Is it related to inversion of control, sir? Here, Spring Framework.
Yeah, why we should call, why we are calling IOC, you will realize it after dependency injection, runtime polymorphism, Java only providing that benefit to us. So they used that, uh, concept underlying that, runtime polymorphism concept. They implemented Spring Framework. So you'll be realizing it, why we are calling it as IOC, inversion of control. Okay.
Sir, okay, sir. So IOC and dependency exception are same, sir.
Yeah, IOC is just a terminology, inversion of control. Okay. This inversion of control, how we achieved means via these features, dependency injections, auto wiring, stereotypes. Combining all these features are making your container as a IOC. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Okay. I'm getting late to another session. We'll meet Monday
Yeah.
same time. Okay. Get the regular link. Okay. 7:40. They will share one. Not Zoom link. Go to meeting link. They will share. Before
Okay.
session itself, install GoToMeeting, or else just try to join 10 minutes before. So at least it will download software and install it in your machines. Okay.
Okay. So link will be available on email, right?
Yes, they will provide email.
Okay. Yeah.
If
Thank
you
you.
have any issues, reach out to me
Right. Okay.
before 7:40 a.m. Monday. Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. Good day and have a nice weekend. Okay. Thank you all. Bye.
Bye bye.